The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Hospice Lunch and Learn, where we're going to talk about hospice documentation to support terminality. Thank you for joining us. And if I could just get a show of hands to let me know that you can see my screen, number one, hear me, number two, and see the captions at the bottom of the screen where the slide is showing. Awesome. Good, good, good. I see some hands going up. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Beautiful. All right. All right, I am going to go ahead and hit send in the chat box in the GoToWebinar toolbar. There is a survey link in that chat box, and I'm going to ask that when the presentation is complete, that you all take a few moments to fill out that short survey. That lets us know how we're doing here at NGS and Provider Outreach and Education. We're here to support you, and we would love to hear your feedback and letting us know how we're doing and how we can serve you better. So thank you very much for that. If you'll also just take a look at your toolbar in the handout section, I have placed the PDF version of today's presentation. For those of you who did not have a chance to grab that from the events page of our website, that is typically available prior to the presentation. For those of you who didn't get it, I do have it here in the handout section. I have turned off the question box or the ability to ask questions in the question box during the duration of the presentation, which should be rather short and will give us some time at the end of our lunch and learn to have a Q&A, and I will turn the question box back on at that time. So without further ado, let's get into the topic. And if I haven't said it yet, my name is Erin Musamichi, and just always chuckle a little bit when I see it pop up on the screen there in closed captions, because they definitely don't spell it correctly, but you'll see it here on one of the next slides. So just quickly here, our disclaimer here at National Government Services, we're giving you the most current and up-to-date information at the time the presentation was developed. However, for current Medicare regulations, please head on out to the CMS website, which you can see is hyperlinked here on this slide, for all of your current regulations. So let's talk about our objective today. And just as an aside, there is never any recording permitted of our educational events. This applies to, as you can see on the screen, webinars, teleconferences, or any live events that we may offer here at NGS. So during the session, we're going to provide the information tools necessary to enhance the quality of your documentation as hospice clinicians and emphasize the significance of comprehensive record keeping, and encourage clinicians to provide the highest quality of care while adhering to those regulatory requirements that are set forth by CMS. All right, and there is my name spelled correctly. As you can see, I am one of the home health and hospice provider outreach and education consultants here. And let's look at our agenda. We're going to talk about supporting that hospice terminality, and we'll do a quick review of some references and resources that were used to develop the presentation and that we use on a regular basis. All right, so supporting hospice terminality. Hospice nursing documentation must be very descriptive, and documentation should always support and reflect the patient's terminal diagnosis in the hospice situation. You want to stick to objective and measurable documentation. Okay, so very, very important. We want to hone in on that. Documentation must support that physician certification of terminal illness with that life expectancy of less than 6 months. Uh, you want to focus on your patient's deterioration and decline, the downward trajectory, and use that objective data. So as you can see, I've listed out some important bullets here. Consider and document your end-stage disease trajectory of the patient, the comorbid and related secondary conditions, your decline in performance status, amount of assistance required for ADLs, the decline in their nutritional status, and really any changes in status or condition over time. Benefits of using these measurable objectives and documentation to support terminality allows you to be specific to the patient while supporting the downward decline or life expectancy of 6 months or less. And you want to be very descriptive. So document with evidence such as the what's. So dyspnea, cachexic, weight loss, poor appetite, fragile, weaker, and the hows as evidenced by fully describe what you're seeing. Quantitative data, some items will need to be documented at least weekly, such as mid-arm circumference and weight if they're able to stand safely on a scale. Any wound characteristics to include size, drainage, odor, the wound bed description, peri-wound, if there's any tunneling or undermining, and use of standardized tools depending on the patient's terminal illness. And those could include FAST, the Karnofsky, PPS, New York Heart Association class. And extremes of nutritional status are associated with increased mortality. So keep that in mind. When you're talking about nutrition, appetite, the amount they're eating, how much were they eating prior? Those weights are very important, associated with the nutritional status. Nausea, is there any nausea or vomiting? Has there been a diet downgrade, such as have they gone from regular to pureed? Are they utilizing or are they using nutritional supplements? Is there muscle wasting? Are there bony prominences noted? How are their albumin levels? Those sometimes indicate malnourishment. An example of some documentation, they ate 50% of the meal. That's kind of vague. Just be more specific. Was that 50% of a pound of bacon and a dozen eggs, or was that 50% of a half of a banana, or a 50% of a banana, so a half of a banana and a half a cup of oatmeal? So there's a big difference in the nutritional and caloric intake for those two meals that I just spoke of. And 50% of the meal may or may not be significant. Inquire with the family or caregivers, what was a typical meal before the patient was maybe hospitalized or started their decline? Was the patient eating 3 full meals a day and snacks in between, and now only takes maybe 1 or 2 bites of food? And now they are being reduced to a pureed diet due to swallowing issues or whatever the case. Significant decline, when you're talking about weight loss of at least 10% of body weight in the prior 6 months, not due to reversible causes such as depression or use of diuretics. Decreasing measurements such as mid-arm circumference or abdominal girth, not due to reversible causes such as depression or use of diuretics. Excuse me, observation of ill-fitting clothes, decrease in skin turgor, increasing in skin folds, or other observation of weight loss in a patient without documented weight. Decreasing serum albumin or cholesterol, again, those sometimes indicate malnourishment. Dysphagia leading to recurrent aspiration and or inadequate oral intake, documented by decreasing food portion consumption. So Let's talk about ADLs. ADL deficits are the most important predictor of 6-month mortality. Ambulation, continence, transfers, feeding, bathing, and dressing. So I'm going to make a statement. Which out of these two are more descriptive? So assist in 5 of 6 ADLs at admission and at recertification, or admission. Standby assistance with ambulation with a walker, occasional incontinence, minimal assistance with transfers, independent in feeding, moderate assistance with bathing and dressing. And then recertification, personal assistance with ambulation with walker, incontinent bowel and bladder, maximum assistance with transfers, independent in feeding, moderate assistance with bathing and dressing. Well, obviously the latter is more descriptive. So we don't want to just say assist in 5 of 6 ADLs at admission and at recertification. That's just way too vague. So those last two that I spelled out or stated are obviously much more descriptive. All right, so simple examples of sentences painting a picture of deterioration within a hospice medical record include: patient is much weaker than last visit, breathing is more shallow and the patient is conversing slower today, and long silences with fixed stares. All right, so that's showing a slow decline. A slow decline in what exactly? So patients who have a diagnosis like Alzheimer's, dementia, or Parkinson's, it's expected they're going to have a slow decline, right? So it's also expected that they can live several years in a custodial state. So what decline are you seeing in the patient that would lead you to believe that they have a prognosis of less than 6 months to live? Is their ambulation affected? Is their appetite or eating habits, or have their appetite or eating habits changed? Are they having increased bouts of anxiety and respiratory difficulty? The documentation you're placing in the medical record really needs to describe the decline you're seeing in the patient. So words like stable and eating well don't support decline enough. In fact, these types of general words could lead a reviewer, a medical reviewer, to believe that the patient is stable with no decline demonstrated. So you really need to be more descriptive. All right, so let's look at a scenario and then some documentation based on the scenario presented. And as we go through the example, think about what kind of documentation would help in painting the picture of this patient. So I'm going to give you the scenario, and as you can see, we're going to look at the vague versus objective documentation on the slide. So the patient is a 72-year-old female with a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. She was hospitalized on June 20th, 2016 for pneumonia with an admission weight of 85 pounds. Upon discharge from the hospital on June 25th, the patient returned home with her daughter, who is the primary caregiver, and was admitted into hospice. Her hospice admitting weight was 82.5 pounds. All necessary paperwork was completed and met CMS requirements. So now we're going to look at this documentation on the screen. So vague, an example of vague documentation would be patient having dyspnea on exertion. Objective documentation would be patient ambulates 10 feet between chair and bed before experiencing dyspnea and weakness with one assist. 1 month ago, patient ambulated slowly from room to room with walker. Family reports that the patient is only able to sit up with family for 30 minutes before returning to bed. All right, so let's look at another example of vague versus objective documentation. And this one is in a bulleted format, which is okay. But again, vague would be just simply stating overall weakness. And just as a reminder, this is based on the scenario that I read. The objective documentation: patient is unable to independently hold head up this visit, which lasted 45 minutes. Patient is unable to dress or bathe self this week. Patient was able to assist with dressing last month. Patient fell last week and now using walker for assistance with ambulating. So much more descriptive. All right, one more last example. So for vague documentation, just not enough in terms of the nutrition, poor appetite, eating less. It's just not enough. So what you would want to do is more objective. Appetite decline from eating 50% of a sandwich 1 month ago, now eating 2 to 3 bites at a meal. Family is concerned that the patient refuses her favorite meal. And then eating 3 to 4 bites of food with difficulty. Last week was eating 2 full meals per day. Drinks 2 to 3 sips of thickened liquids and aspirates easily. Last week was drinking 2 glasses per day. So you're giving more of a full picture. All right, let's take a look at references and resources, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. All right, so your conditions of participation, specifically 42 CFR 418.3 through 418.22, and then your IOMs, the Chapter 11 and Chapter 9. And also have hyperlinked here the Medicare Learning Network for you. I utilize that a lot for research and looking things up, and it's a great resource to have saved to your favorites on your desktop. And then, of course, our ngsmedicare.com, where you can find plenty of job aids, past and upcoming webinars, and also our Medicare University computer-based training course list and information on how to create a login and sign up for that. So please utilize those. They are free resources and free education for you and your staff. There's no need to go and pay anyone to provide education to you when it's all right here for you, and it's available for you for free. And just as an aside, for any follow-up questions specific to a completed home health or hospice educational webinar or training, please send that inquiry to our shared mailbox at ngshhhpo, and that's P like Peter, O like Oscar, E like Edward, at elevancehealth.com. And I will go ahead and put that in the chat right now for all of you. And if there are follow-up questions following this training, you can send those there. Please reference your PTAN NPI in the subject, as well as follow-up question related to an education or training. You can specify what education or training it was, but most importantly, your provider, your PTAN or your MPI. All right. And for those of you that may not know, we do have a home health and hospice podcast that we launch new episodes for on the second and fourth Thursday of each month. You can use your cell phones right now and scan that QR code to pull that up in Spotify or Apple Podcast platform. We just launched our episode last week from our ORU department. We talked with Pat Coleman again on getting your credit balance reports in on time. Please check that out. We've got one on hospice caps. We've got some on medical, some interviewing with medical review department. We had a hospice transfer episode recently launched. Great small snippets of information and education for your hospice agency staff. They can listen to it on the go. It's a great way to get educated. And it's fun too. We have a lot of fun doing these podcasts. So I encourage you all to check those out. And then you can connect with us on social media. We have a YouTube channel where there's educational videos you can share with your staff. We're also on LinkedIn. And there's your link to MedicareUniversity.com where you can sign your staff up for self-paced online learning. And check out our Medicare mobile option. Text the word news or games to that 37702 on your mobile device, and you will get updates. And last but not least, if you are not signed up for email updates through our website at ngsmedicare.com, I encourage you to do so that you can get the latest and greatest updates, Medicare updates, and also we will let you know about upcoming events, trainings, and so on. All right, let me head over to my toolbar here and open up the question box. And see what we got going on here. And also, just so I didn't have a chance to put in the slide on the summit, but we are doing our MAC Collaborative Home Health and Hospice Summit again. And we will be in Las Vegas for the last time at the Flamingo. And that conference is going to be held from October 2nd through the 4th. And I hope that all of you will keep your eyes on the website. And if you're not signed up for email updates, get signed up because we will be sending out registration information very, very soon. And it'll be 3 full days of education at a very, very reasonable price. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So the question box is open. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to utilize that. I don't see any questions at this time. I'm looking for any hands going up here, and I don't see any of those either. Oh, Linda and Marlena. Oh, I have a question. When admitting a patient with general decline, we usually choose the hospice diagnosis that may be causing the biggest decline. How do you suggest we document this? Okay, who's choosing the hospice diagnosis? That should be coming from the referring, the medical director. Okay, yeah. So yes, it should be the primary diagnosis. You can document comorbid and other conditions within your supporting documentation, but it should be centered around that primary diagnosis for the hospice, the reason why they've been placed on hospice. I will be, just so you're all aware, I am working on a lunch and learn series, a new lunch and learn series, because this one's getting towards the end. And I will be talking about documenting as using the LCD as a guideline for documentation as well. I know there's been a lot of buzz about that. And then I'm going to go ahead and unmute Linda Martin Heaney. It looks like you raised your hand, and Marlena as well. You guys can either speak or you can chat in the chat box or type your question in the question box. I'm not sure if you raised your hand because you had a question or you wanted to. And you can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask, or if you want to just type it in the chat box. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else here. Just another reminder, if you all would please just fill out or participate in the survey to let us know how we're doing. And if you have any suggestions for education, please feel free to send those to the NGS HHH po@elevancehealth.com shared mailbox that I put into the chat. We are always open to any suggestions for education. We want to hear from you. You are the provider community that we're here to support, so please feel free to let us know if there's a topic that's pressing and that you'd like to see some education on. Please let us know. We want to help you in any way we can. All right. Well, it looks like there's no more questions in the question box. I don't see anyone else raising their hand. I have unmuted the lines. If anyone did want to go ahead and speak up and say anything last here before I end the webinar, but I will wait the 3 additional minutes here because we don't officially end until 1:30. Oh, there is one more. That was very helpful. I'll be sharing the information with our staff. Well, thank you very much. And yes, please utilize the PDF slides that were in the handout section. And yeah, absolutely share those slides with your staff, with your agency, and go to ngsmedicare.com where you'll find much more educational content and information. And as I said, we are always open to suggestions. If there's something that you would like to see that you don't see, please let us know. We're gearing up for our second quarter and getting ready to do, a different lunch and learn series for both hospice and home health. So, any suggestions you might have, if we can somehow work it into our education plan, we would love to hear from you. So please let us know. All right, everyone. Well, I appreciate all of you attending today and anyone who did ask a question, thank you very much. And please don't forget to fill out that survey. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. and a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, be well, stay safe out there, and thank you for all you do to take care of these hospice patients. Bye-bye, everyone.